If you were trapped on Staten Island and murder was made legal for 12 hours, what would you do? People are going to be slaughtered and nowhere is safe to hide. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the experiment in the first Purge. This woman is going to survive a massacre. Naya here watches a news report about an experiment that will be running on Staten Island called the Purge, where for one night, all crimes will be legal, including murder. It's sickening, and to make matters worse, they're offering $5,000 for anyone who volunteers. They've already set up application centers near their apartment building, and the woman warns her brother to leave the island before the experiment begins. After gathering her things, Naya leaves their home, but Isaiah here knows they're struggling to make ends meet, and he'll do whatever it takes to help his sister financially. Nearby the tower block, hundreds of people have gathered to apply for the experiment, and they're desperate for the money. But nearby, Naya here leads a protest against the Purge. She points out that the government is luring poor Americans and argues that they're trying to get them to kill each other. In a nearby neighborhood, Isaiah is working on a street and dealing dope to clients, when suddenly this crazy guy appears behind him. Scared, the kid tries to calm down and tells him to go away, but Skeletor here doesn't care. He can tell how terrified Isaiah is and mocks him for being a coward. The brother shoves him away, embarrassed to be called out, and the psychopath pulls out a razor blade from his mouth before attacking him. He quickly runs out of there just as the kid's friend comes to back him up and shoots his gun at the man. They quickly get out of there and leave, giving Isaiah an excuse to join the Purge. Meanwhile, this gang leader Dimitri gathers his crew and orders them to protect their territory during the Purge. All of their enemies might take the opportunity to attack them, and they need to be ready to kill anyone that makes a move on their turf. With that, the meeting is over and the gangsters head home, but soon their entire neighborhood will turn into a killing field. At the evaluation center, the brother Isaiah volunteers for the experiment, and the agent hands him a box. She explains that inside are special contact lenses that will record everything he sees, but they are only to be worn if he actively participates in the Purge, and promises him more money if he does. It gives the kid more reason to get revenge, and once he gets a tracking device implanted into his body, he'll officially be a test subject for the world's deadliest experiment. 1 hour before the Purge, the streets begin emptying and the bridge from Staten Island is closed off, leaving the community stranded from the rest of New York. This mother Louisa takes her daughter to a church where she meets up with Naya and this woman who welcomes them, reassuring her friend that they'll be safe here. The sister walks away to call her brother and asks if he got off the island. He lies, saying that he's in Brooklyn, and she believes him. Relieved, the woman hangs up the phone and Isaiah seizes the opportunity to put on the special contact lenses. He wants to purge and is determined to get revenge on Skeletor for humiliating him, but this kid will find out this was his biggest mistake. Okay, this kid is an idiot. An extremist party has announced that they're making all crime legal on his island, and now he wants to get revenge on a violent maniac. The problem is that this kid has no plan and no idea where his target is. It's not smart, but there still might be a good way to go about this. And that's why if it were me, I'd talk to some known enemies of Skeletor to get their support and or resources. A man like this must have a lot of enemies, and any one of them would be likely willing to pay for his head. If we get enough people paying for the same man's death, we can use this opportunity to not only get revenge, but be lifted out of poverty to do it. We need to make sure we know where the man is before the Purge begins. This puts us at a strategic advantage because we won't have to risk our lives searching for him on the one day crime is legal, and we can plan the killing so we're in control. It wouldn't even be that hard to find him if he knew about geographic profiling. This is a scientific methodology that analyzes the locations of connected serial killers to figure out where criminals most likely live, and we can use this by narrowing down our search by taking everything we know about the situation, just like the FBI does. Now, obviously we don't have the resources those agencies have, but we can still use the same basic principles by searching local crimes from our computer, and use the data to track his methods, giving us a head start to find his general location. We know he's been operating as Skeletor for at least 2 years, and it would be pretty hard to miss this lunatic, as his facial scars alone would make it impossible for him to blend in normally. Based on his erratic behavior and goals, we know he's absolutely unhinged, which makes it very unlikely he can keep a job. He might not even have a permanent address, and it would be extremely unlikely that this man would be clear-headed enough to follow a daily routine. However, we know he's violent and unstable, and he must be getting money for his drugs from somewhere. With this in mind, I would look for patterns of hyper-violent crimes with property or cash missing. This information should allow us to figure out where he hunts for targets and spends his time. We can then exploit those patterns to find him, make a plan, and take the fight to him on our terms. If Isaiah had thought to do any of this, he could have had his revenge while minimizing risks and avoided running around in the open with no plan during the Purge. That night, everyone across the city watches the president announce the start of the experiment and wishes the volunteers good luck. That's when a PSA warns them that they're authorized to use Class 4 weapons and makes it clear that during the Purge, all crimes will be legal for 12 hours, including murder. With those last words, an alarm starts blaring across the island, and the Purge has officially begun. Leaving his apartment, Isaiah steps outside and notices a drone hovering overhead. It must be the government keeping tabs on the experiment, and the guy heads out to hunt down his prey, terrified that he might be killed. Meanwhile, the man is trying to pry open an ATM to steal some money, but that's when Skeletor suddenly appears behind him and stabs the guy in the chest. The psychopath starts bragging to the people running the experiment that he's made the first kill of the night, and his bloodbath won't stop anytime soon. Across town, the gang leader calls his colleague Zoe to check up on their operations, and the guy reveals that one of the gang members, Capital A, disobeyed orders. He's gone out to purge, but Zoe has some good news. Someone has sent escorts to keep him company, but the man doesn't care. Dimitri here wants to make sure his crew survives, and knows things will only get worse as the night goes on. Meanwhile, Isaiah cuts through an alley when he notices that there are dolls and cans of fuel scattered across the area. It's strange, and the man picks one up when he hears people laughing at him. On a fire escape are two women wearing the contact lenses, and he flips the teddy bear over, realizing it's a remote-controlled bomb. This whole alley is a trap, and he runs straight through, narrowly avoiding the exploding dolls. He walks through the streets searching for his target as the shopkeepers tell him to back off, but that's when he sees two cars pulling up. A group of gangsters walk out of the vehicles, and this guy, Capital A, tells the old man that he's here to purge. Throwing a brick through the window, the gang members head inside, and Isaiah decides to walk away, but is surprised by another group of gangsters. Terrified, he pulls out his gun, but that's when one of them recognizes him, and he realizes it's one of Dimitri's men. The guy notices the kid is wearing contact lenses and figures out he's looking to get revenge on Skeletor. It's embarrassing how right he is, and the man invites him to a party down the block, suggesting that they might find the psychopath there. The kid agrees and goes with the gangsters, following them to a street filled with people. They've all gathered to have fun instead of killing or committing crimes, but soon this party is going to become a massacre. That's when Isaiah notices everyone starts pulling out their phones, whispering about a horrific video, and sees a recording that's been released to the public. It's shocking to watch the first kill of the night, but that reminds him why he joined the experiment. The gangsters warn the kid that the psychopath is dangerous, but he doesn't care, and walks away, leaving his friends behind. Isaiah doesn't realize the killer has just found the partygoers and is about to go on a murder spree. Okay, looking for Skeletor at a party isn't a terrible idea. We know that he's a violent killer with few resources, and that he wants attention for his crimes. Killing unarmed people at a party is exactly what he would do. That being said, this kid just witnessed a horrific murder at the hands of the psycho he's hunting, and if he's not careful, he'll end up the second murder of the night. With that in mind, leaving his friends at a crowded party to look for this guy is a great way to lose a kidney. In a crowded place like this, he has no plan for what to do if he actually finds Skeletor. Firing his weapon into the crowd will kill innocent people. He saw the video of the first Purge kill moments earlier and knows that Skeletor prefers melee weapons based on his previous encounters with him, which means in this crowded party, Skeletor has another major advantage. With a little bit of forethought, he could have had a much easier time finding Skeletor and put himself in a much better position to be able to do something with that information. If he really thought Skeletor would be here, he should have asked the people at the edges of the party if they had seen him. If no one in the immediate area has spotted the man, then he probably isn't there, and if they had, then we would know where to start looking. He also could have found some high ground and surveyed the scene from up above. Any of the trees or low roofs are fair game, and a parkour wall climb would make this easy and fast. Now, he would need to be extra careful climbing onto the roof of the house, as he would be exposed, so he could have a friend watch his back, or go around and climb from outside the party. Skeletor doesn't blend in, and wouldn't be too hard to spot from high ground. It's also important to think about the fact that everything he does is currently being recorded and shown on the news, so how he acts in this situation matters. If he follows through, then he's going to lock himself into being a criminal for the rest of his life, because people tend to think twice about hiring someone who's been on TV for murder even during the Purge. If he hasn't already been hired to kill the man, then he could still walk away and live a normal life. Across town, the gang leader welcomes these escorts to his penthouse and gets himself ready for their company, but he knows something isn't right. Walking out of the bathroom, the man approaches the women and they start to seduce him. He doesn't seem to notice that the girl behind him pulls a knife out of the pool table, and she tries to stab the gangster, but he quickly turns around ground, stopping her at the last second. The other woman slashes him across the back, and the man gets kicked across the room. Dimitri realizes they must have been sent to assassinate him and brutally fights them off. He manages to overpower them both and knocks them to the floor, demanding to know who hired them. That's when they revealed that it was Capital A, the gang member who went out purging and betrayed him. Meanwhile, Skeletor walks around the party looking for his next victim when a girl starts dancing with him. She spins around to face the man, and the Psycho takes the opportunity to viciously jam his knife into her body. Everyone around them is too busy partying to notice until he begins stabbing a man several times, making them realize that someone is purging. Terrified, the whole crowd runs away and scatters, but suddenly he hears someone cock a gun. Turning around, the killer sees it's Isaiah and dares him to pull the trigger, but he can't. Acting quickly, the Psycho slaps the gun out of his hand and the kid runs away. He didn't have the guts to shoot, and now the killer is going to hunt him down until one of them finally dies. Searching for a place to hide, the brother enters an abandoned warehouse and sees a group of purgers smoking up, but then they spot him. He runs away as fast as he can, but slips and falls to the ground. The kid gets back to his feet and finds a room to hide in, but there's a problem. When he fell, Isaiah cut his leg and the purgers are still looking for him. That's when his sister calls, and he answers, revealing that he's hiding in a warehouse on Staten Island. Worried, the woman immediately heads out to go find him and sneaks through the streets, making sure not to get caught. Suddenly, a wire slips around her ankle and pulls her off balance. The woman crashes to the ground and is dragged towards a metal grate where a purger tries to reel her in. Terrified, the woman pulls out a can of pepper spray and shoots it straight in his eyes, forcing the man to let go. She immediately runs off to the warehouse Isaiah is hiding in and sends him a message, letting the kid know she's here. Okay, this went horribly wrong really fast, and it all comes down to one major mistake. He was way too close to the Psycho. Isaiah announced his presence with a click of his gun and stood close enough to a crazed lunatic to smell his breath. He couldn't have gone about this in a worse way even if he tried. Now, this is where our earlier strategy would really shine, because if Isaiah was on the roof of one of these buildings when the crowd dispersed, then Skeletor would have to run towards a man with a gun and climb onto the roof before he could be in range to use his weapon. Either way, he was too close. The whole point of a gun is that you can kill someone far enough away that they can't reach you. If he gave himself more distance and time, it would have been a lot easier to stay composed and pull the trigger, getting multiple tries to get it right. This Psycho is terrifying, so if it were me, I'd want as much distance between the two of us as I can get to make the shot. Now, there's another approach here that could work to our advantage, and that's if we set this up to trap the criminal from the beginning. If Isaiah had coordinated with Skeletor's enemies and promised to bring him to them, we can expect anyone with a vendetta might be willing to help, as long as they know they can get away with it. We might even be able to make a profit by telling them we'll deliver their enemy for a small finder's fee, and the whole thing would have made a lot more sense given the risks involved. Demonstrating panicked or cowardly behavior could instead be used to lure this Psycho into a pre-designated kill zone with his enemies lying in wait to take the man out. It's a win-win, but instead, Isaiah here had no idea where he's going and runs straight into a building with no clue if there's another way out. He could have easily backed himself into a corner or run right into a different group of purgers. If he had run Skeletor into a group of his gang buddies, we might look like cowards to them, but there's a good chance they'll kill him for us. I should also point out that removing the glowing contacts was a good idea, but it came far too late. Honestly, there isn't enough money you could pay me to put on a tracking device and have me wear these things. But he should have taken the contacts out as soon as he realized he didn't have the nerve to kill this guy. The reason is because when you're running and hiding from a Psycho with glowing blue eyes, it's a great way to give your pursuer a heads up to where you are. If he had coordinated with Skeletor's other enemies, he could have had backup or even an entire team working alongside him. They could have set up a false retreat on Isaiah's end, then lured Skeletor into this building with enemies lying in wait, then blocked off the exit. They could have him trapped and killed, and there wouldn't be anything he can do to escape. Meanwhile, her brother is still in the room when a purger walks by and looks through the window searching for him. Thinking quickly, the kid closes his eyes so the man doesn't see his glowing contacts, and luckily, the purger walks off. He wasn't spotted, and Isaiah takes out the lenses, realizing that they make it too easy for someone to see him. The kid leaves his hiding spot and peeks through a window to check if the coast is clear, but that's when he sees Skeletor holding his sister hostage. The Psycho wants to hurt his next victim and is about to slit her throat, but that was his biggest mistake. Isaiah suddenly comes running out of the building and jams a glass shard straight into his back. He lets go of Naya, and the two siblings quickly get out of there as the killer tries to pull the shard out. In another part of town, the gangster Capital A meets with the escorts he hired, thinking they've assassinated the gang leader, but that's when Dimitri's men come out of hiding. They've surrounded the traitors with weapons pointed to their heads, and the leader walks up to the Purger, making it clear that he's going to die. Without hesitation, he takes a gun and executes the man on the spot. It's cold-blooded, and the guy walks away as his men finish off the other traitors. Making their way to the church, the siblings walk through the street, and the brother apologizes to his sister for lying. The woman understands that he's frustrated that they're poor, and promises to help him get out of the gang life. But that's when a man in a raincoat approaches them. They back away as he holds the siblings up at gunpoint and beg him to leave them alone, but he refuses. Suddenly, the man fires his weapon, spraying them with water, and runs away. They were just pranked with a water gun, but soon the bodies are going to pile up. The siblings continue walking through the streets when they hear bikers in the distance. They quickly hide behind a pot as these purgers race past them, but it's strange. They're nothing like the people they've seen, and soon they'll discover firsthand how brutal these purgers can be. On another street, Dimitri and his gang are driving down the road when a flaming truck crashes straight into them. The gang leader wakes up inside the flipped-over car as armed men start shooting up his escort vehicle with high-powered weapons. He knows that there's more to these guys than meets the eyes, and the man crawls out of the vehicle, deciding to take matters into his own hands. Dimitri kills one of the purgers from behind and steals his rifle, using it to shoot down the others. With the gunman dealt with, he calls one of his gang members and tells him to bring the whole crew over here. Okay, this is what happens when you're distracted on the road, and if these guys were paying attention, this could have been easily avoided. That being said, this might have actually been a good thing, because Dimitri has now learned that trained mercenaries were hired to make this whole purge look like a complete success. The NFFA is clearly willing to do whatever it takes to make their twisted version of America a reality, and that would be all I would need to decide they needed to be stopped at all costs. The purge was a terrible idea from the start, and there's way too many loopholes waiting for people to exploit. Eventually, everyone will be trying to solve their life problems with murder, and society is going to completely collapse as a result. What's even worse about the purge is that it's not even doing what it's supposed to. It's very unlikely this is going to reduce crime for the rest of the year, and we need to form a multi-pronged strategy to end the NFFA before they get too powerful to stop. If it were me, I would start recording the gunfight and then explain to the camera how I knew these men were mercenaries, recording some of the radio chatter to prove my point. I'd talk to the camera as I went and keep as much transparency as I could at the beginning of all this. I would want to inform the public and get my message out there as quickly as possible without compromising my team's position, but timing is key here. Now that they're all dead, he should have taken the time to search the bodies for any ID or clues that might tell us where they came from, and if we're lucky, then we can destroy the NFFA's credibility and end the purge forever. Obviously, he should also loot the bodies because they won't be needing it anymore. Dimitri takes one of the walkie-talkies, and that's the most important thing he could have done because it gives him an information advantage that will be crucial for winning the war. Now, he can hear all the radio chatter from his enemies and can figure out where they are or what they plan to do next. As clever as this was, he missed a huge opportunity to get some hard evidence for his case. He should have started recording the radio chatter from the walkie-talkies first, before sending them to every news agency in the country. After he set that up, it's time we take the fight to them instead, and use every trick and resource we have to win. Meanwhile, the siblings almost reach the church, but they're horrified to see that the bikers have already ransacked it and killed the innocent people inside. The sister can't believe anyone could be so cruel, and once the purgers leave, the siblings go to see if anyone survived. They're walking up the stairs when suddenly the mother Luisa comes out of hiding with her daughter. Relieved, Naya asks what happened, and the woman explains that the purgers shot up the entire congregation without mercy. She only managed to survive by playing dead, and the sister demands if her neighbor Dolores also survived, but the mother doesn't know. The brother tries calling the woman, but her phone is off, and that's when they hear gunfire in the distance. With the streets getting too dangerous, the survivors head to the siblings' apartment for safety, but soon they'll find out it's a death trap. Out on the road, Dimitri and his gang check the dead bodies of the purgers, discovering that they all have the same tattoo. The design is only worn by mercenaries for hire, and it's a sign that the government is interfering with the experiment. They find a headset, and hear someone report that a squad has finished killing people on a nearby street. The gangsters head over there and take a look around at the bodies, but it's horrible. The soldiers have shown no mercy to any of their victims, and that makes Dimitri furious. One of his men insists they should get back home for safety, but he makes it clear they're going to hunt down these death squads. At the tower block apartment, the survivors head for the entrance when a purger attacks them with a machete. The sister narrowly avoids getting sliced apart, and Isaiah distracts the man so the women can get to safety. Thinking quickly, he rolls into this construction site and protects himself using the metal beams, pushing one straight into the purger's head. He quickly makes a break for it, sprinting as fast as he can, and his sister locks the door, stopping the killer from breaking in. The survivors take shelter in the siblings' apartment and catch their breaths. Turning on the TV, they watch a news report announcing announcing the purge will end in 2 hours, but the brutal carnage outside isn't slowing down. It's shocking to see. But that's when the mother notices bloodstains on the floor and begins to panic. Naya reassures her that it's nothing to worry about and speaks to her in private, telling the woman they will survive. It's what she needed to hear, but soon this building will become a tomb. At the gang's hideout, Dimitri and his lieutenants start grabbing weapons, arming themselves for the fight to come. He tells his crew that the government sent the mercenaries and is using this experiment to kill off the poor. The man refuses to let them kill any more of his people, and with all their weapons gathered, the gang goes to war. Okay, since we don't know how many there are or how well they've been trained, approaching this wrong means the gang could get themselves killed if they aren't careful. We don't know what the mercenaries are capable of if they decide to assemble their forces and take the gang down. But if Dimitri plays his cards right, he's got several huge advantages here. Dimitri's advantages all come down to one thing: information. The mercenaries have no idea they're under attack, and the longer Dimitri can keep it that way, the better. It's also worth pointing out that the mercenaries also don't know the lay of the land. These soldiers were taken from all over the country, which means that most of them have probably never seen Staten Island before today, whereas Dimitri's men have been here for a long time and will easily be able to navigate the back streets. Finally, we have the walkie-talkie. It may not seem like much, but with this one thing, they can listen to all the mercenaries' radio chatter, which means they know where they'll be, when, and what's going on. They will also be able to know if the enemy realizes there's something wrong. Lastly, they can use the radios to call people in for backup and lure them into traps. They also have some explosives that will come into play to even the playing fields in a major way. This all sets us up to use guerrilla tactics in a big way, and the great news is, history is full of examples where this style of warfare has been effective in dense urban environments. The reason is because there's plenty of cover and maneuvering large forces becomes nearly impossible in the thick urban jungle. Luckily for us, the defender has the advantage in this situation, and we can take some notes from SAS officers who are one of the best counter-terrorist special forces units. For example, we can lure insurgent gunmen into ambushes and use apparently unnamed SAS officers as the bait. They've also been known to raise groups of surrendered enemy fighters and provide aid to victims along the way to help the locals. With this in mind, we can follow their example by providing aid to local victims and garner even more support while moving quickly to act on new intelligence, hitting hard before disappearing again. Finally, we can use their growing knowledge of our threat against them, and by developing a social media campaign that starts to take root, more citizens will stand up to help us stop the NFFA mercenaries. Back in the apartment, the group hears the woman Dolores knock on the door, and the brother lets her in. She managed to survive the church massacre, and the woman starts complaining about everything she faced getting back here, making the survivors laugh. They're all relieved their friends will live to see another day, but that's when the siblings take a look outside. Fires have been set throughout Staten Island, and it's a brutal reminder that the purge isn't over yet. In another part of the city, these survivors are being attacked by the government death squads, but they're getting slaughtered and running out of ammo. It's clear they have no hope of getting out of this alive, but they refuse to go down without a fight. This old guy starts handing them weapons, and they wait for the soldiers to come into the building, guns blazing, but someone throws a smoke bomb. Suddenly, the death squad is attacked by Dimitri and his gang, brutally killing them one by one. With the mercenaries dead, they greet the other survivors and give them guns for protection, but that's when a voice reports on the headset the soldiers are gathering at the housing projects. It's clear the government is trying to take out as many people before the purge ends, and they need to get over there as soon as possible. Back at the apartment, the survivors look out the window and they're horrified to see a convoy of vehicles heading straight for them. On the streets below, Dimitri arrives with his gang, and he starts organizing his men so they can attack the mercenaries. But that's when this guy notices drones flying overhead. The machines suddenly start firing at the men, and the gang leader gets pushed under the car by his friend. It's a brutal execution, and there's nothing he can do to save the others. When the shooting finally stops, he crawls out to check on the gang members, and all of them are dead except for one. This guy is barely clinging on to life, and tells Dimitri to head for the towers before it's too late. Meanwhile, in the apartment, Naya and the others realize the people invading their tower block aren't just purgers, but a dangerous militia. They're coming in from all sides, and the woman tells them they have no choice but to stay here. That's when she gets a call from Dimitri, who warns her that these soldiers will kill everyone on each floor, and she needs to hide, reassuring her that he'll be coming. With that, he hangs up the phone and walks into the building, determined to rescue his friends. Inside, he carefully makes his way through hallways filled with dead bodies, and follows after the death squad. On one of the floors, the man finds a power box and comes up with a clever plan. He shuts off the electricity throughout the entire building, and uses the flashing emergency lights to brutally ambush the soldiers. Okay, first of all, if Naya had thought fast, she could have kept her apartment safe by taking the fight to them before they even made it into the building. They knew these guys were coming in to kill people, and the only thing they thought to do with that information was to hide and get out a weapon. The truth is, with a couple of Molotov cocktails, she could have seriously injured or killed some of them and bought enough time for her Super X to come in and save the day. Now, while Dimitri's plan to kill the power is pretty good, I think he could have done better. This strategy doesn't immediately stop the mercenaries from killing innocent people, and is likely to cause casualties along the way. He needs to get them out of the building in a hurry so that he can fight on his terms and put an end to the casualties as soon as possible. He could have saved far more lives and killed all of them in a single debilitating blow with way less risk to himself if he had lured them out and taken the time to set a trap. The plan we're about to use is shockingly similar to the tactics used by Oda Nobunaga and the Battle of Okehazama. He was severely outnumbered by a warlord by the name of Imagawa Yoshimoto, who wanted to trample through his clan to attempt to take over the capital. Oda was outnumbered 10-1 and managed to defeat the enemy army by making it look like his army was stationed in Zensho-ji, a fortified temple, by setting up war flags and banners. He then maneuvered his army around a hill under the cover of bad weather and attacked Yoshimoto's war camp while his men still thought they were miles away. This one battle changed the landscape of Japan forever, and we can use a similar tactic here to destroy their assaulting mercenaries and secure the region. If it were me, I would first call an emergency backup on the radio close enough to get them to respond, and far enough to give him the time needed to set up the explosives and strap them to some half-full containers of gasoline. Then, I'd make it look like there are armed people inside. When they approach, we would fire off some shots to sell the danger of the situation and hit the detonator as they run inside to save their teammates. That way, the largest group will be taken out, and after we've cleaned the streets of the majority of the smaller groups, we will have saved as many lives as possible. But I wouldn't stop here. If the NFFA thinks they can take advantage of the Forgotten Borough, then they have another thing coming. If I had definitive proof they hired mercenaries, I'd continue down the warpath and move swiftly to end the conflict as quickly as possible over the next few months. The people of Staten Islanders are tough and tight-knit, the perfect people to have when starting a full-blown rebellion against a country that's actually trying to get you killed. After tonight, I'd be surprised if more than a handful of people stayed on their side, and with our information campaign, conscripting soldiers for our revolution won't be hard. We should also consider looking to Sun Tzu by setting up a command center for Dimitri to get up-to-date information regarding the landscape of the war, creating a living body of intelligence for him to base decisions on and issue orders. That way, he can start to control a larger force as it develops, and later on, employ the use of spies to infiltrate the NFFA and disrupt it from within. With some good old-fashioned warfare and espionage, we can use this night to launch a grassroots campaign that will change the trajectory of the entire United States. Meanwhile, Naya and the others barricade the bedroom door with furniture before searching for weapons. They find a revolver with 5 bullets left and a couple of knives, but the soldiers are going to be there soon. It's terrifying, and the sister then tells the mother to hide in the closet with her daughter, while the others ambush the death squad. With the plan set, they quickly hide, and that's when the mercenaries burst into the room searching for more victims. The sister starts shooting at them in the legs, and the men fall to the floor where the other survivors quickly stab them to death. It's brutal, and another soldier enters the room, but he's suddenly shot in the head. To the siblings' relief, Dimitri has saved their lives, and he warns them all to hide in the closet. He knows more mercenaries are coming their way, and won't let them risk their lives, but Naya refuses. She'll do whatever it takes to help him, and that's when the soldiers enter the apartment. Looking around the corner, Dimitri spots them aiming their weapons and tackles the woman to the floor as the death squad begins firing. They're being boxed in with no way to escape, but the man has an idea. Handing Naya an explosive, he takes cover next to the door and uses a mirror to see what the soldiers are doing. Suddenly, the psychopath Skeletor walks into the apartment and attacks the soldiers. He survived being stabbed and distracts him for long enough that the sister can throw the explosive down the hall. The gang leader stands up so he can shoot it and gets shot in the stomach, but manages to set off the bomb. It blows up, burning the death squad to a crisp, and Dimitri quickly takes cover, protecting them from the blast with a mattress. The group has managed to survive the night and begin to make their way out of the apartment, but then they hear an alarm blaring in the distance. The experiment is over, but they have no idea that the Purge is going to keep on going until the series stops making money. But what do you think? How would you beat the first Purge? Let me know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos like this. Until next time, have a damn good day.